Welcome into HQ Spotlight. Mike Cunio hanging out with Tommy Tran here on a Friday and hanging out with you as well. Where it is the weekend for all of us, but if you're a general manager, a head coach, or an NFL prospect, everything's about to turn up a notch there at the NFL Combine.
No doubt about it. You were there earlier this week. I know what it's like to be out in Indianapolis. In and around Lucas Oil Stadium, the buzz certainly surrounds not only the prospects, but deals to be made. Front office executives all being asked what their team's going to do ahead of this offseason. So we've got you all covered here. And we're talking about, of course, free agents as well. Boom or bust candidates certainly in play in terms of some big names that we're going to be talking about. Names like Mike Evans and names like Malik Willis and Trey Hendrickson. 12 days until NFL free agency begins, and the NFL never sleeps. And if they do, it's not for long. 12 days out, and it'll be interesting to see some of those guys get tags as well. Let's bring in Tyler Sullivan and John Breech with a look at boom or bust free agents ahead of the March 11th date. And these are names that our guys think are high variance acquisitions, meaning they could be a boom or bust for their potential team. So, Tyler, let's start off with Malik Willis, who had a nice season for the Packers, but yet small sample size in relief of Jordan Love.
Right, and that's the big question, why there is such variance with this player. I think that NFL GMs who are starved at the quarterback position are looking for that Sam Darnold. They're looking for that Daniel Jones, that next guy that was once highly touted but kind of fell off and now looking for that career renaissance. And a lot of us are pointing to Malik Willis potentially being that. I mean, what you saw with Green Bay over the last couple of years, you're starting to see those flashes to say, okay, Malik Willis, who's only going to be 27 years old at the start of next season, maybe you can be this next guy up in terms of these veterans that are saving their careers later on. I mean, he's 2-1 as a starter for the Packers, completed 80% of his passes over that stretch. Even that game against the Baltimore Ravens last season was extremely productive, albeit in a loss. 288 yards passing, a passing touchdown, 60 yards rushing, 2 rushing touchdowns. If you're in a GM and you're looking to try to fill that quarterback spot in an offseason where the quarterback class is not that impressive outside of Fernando Mendoza, who's going to be the #1 overall pick, you can make a case to go all in on Malik Willis, but you see it here on that other side of the screen. There is that possibility that we see the Tennessee Titans version of Malik Willis. So again, small sample size, high upside, but you never know what that floor can look like with these players.
Sullivan going with a quarterback as his boom or bust guy. I'm going with a guy who tackles the quarterback, and that is Trey Hendrickson. This is someone who has an extremely high upside, and we know that because he led the NFL in sacks as recently as 2024 with 17.5, and that was 2 straight seasons where he finished with 17.5 sacks. So Trey Hendrickson is someone who can get after the passer. Pass rushing is a hot commodity in the NFL. You look at the last 2 Super Bowls, the Seahawks sacked Drake May 6 times, the Eagles sacked Patrick Mahomes 6 times. So getting after the quarterback is something that you have to be able to do in today's NFL. So that's where Trey Hendrickson could absolutely be a boom guy for the right team. Now, there's also that chance he turns into a bust if you go out and sign him. You look at his 2025 season, he spent most of the year not playing. He dealt with multiple injuries. He had a hip and pelvis issue that had led to him being placed on injured reserve. He missed a total of 10 games, and he just struggled a little bit. He wasn't the same player that he was in 2024. And let's not forget, he's also 31 years old. So there just seems to be kind of this wall that pass rushers hit once they cross 30 and they start going downhill. They're not as productive. So there absolutely will be some risk for any team that signs Trey Hendrickson.
I like the way you handle that, Breech. Nice little segue from quarterback to the one that chases the quarterback here. Sully, I'm going to turn it back to you in terms of Tyreek Hill. We know the injury is a big factor here, but why did you choose him as a boom or bust target?
Well, that's exactly it, right? The fact that we're talking about Tyreek Hill, teams can maybe get him on a bargain, right, because of that injury. So this is the tug and pull when we're talking about some of these free agents, right, where Tyreek Hill, you would say a couple of years ago, oh my goodness, he's a free agent. All of these teams that need wide receivers absolutely should go all in. but there's the fact that there's this injury looming over this player, and it's not just your typical torn ACL. It felt like a little bit more severe, a little bit more gruesome. There were reports of a dislocated kneecap, which technically sometimes means multiple torn ligaments on top of the ACL. And when you're talking about a player like Tyreek Hill, his superpower has been his speed, taking the top off the defense and really being a matchup nightmare. You see it when he first stepped to Miami, was just absolutely sensational. Over 100 yards per game. He's one of the best deep threats in NFL history. But over the last couple of years, that has started to come down a little bit. 58.3 yards receiving per game. So you take the aging player, you add on an injury history now that he's coming back from. There's legitimate risk, but the upside is even if he is 70% of the former Tyreek Hill, and you're a team like the Kansas City Chiefs, who he knows all too well, or the Buffalo Bills, who they also know all too well, but also need a wide receiver, maybe that is a risk worth taking, because the upside there to even get remotely close to peak Tyreek Hill is a little too tantalizing to pass up.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see some of the potential suitors, potential reunitements with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, if Kelce decides to come back as well. Another injury concern for a top player here in Daniel Jones, John Breech. What are we talking in terms of boom or bust with him?
Yeah, this is interesting here. As we know, he might not even hit the free agent market because the Colts could place the franchise tag on him. They have until Tuesday to decide that. But if that doesn't happen, he becomes an intriguing free agent. What we saw during the first half of the season with the Colts last year was a player who could potentially be a future franchise quarterback for this team. Daniel Jones was playing the best football of his career. He looked comfortable in Shane Steichen's offense. You had Jonathan Taylor behind him, Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce. That Colts offense was just pretty loaded. So obviously, the question, though, is what is he going to look like this year? Because he is coming off an Achilles injury. That is a brutal injury to try and come back from. So if you're a team, whether it's the Colts or whether it's another team in free agency, and you sign Daniel Jones, you don't even know if he's going to be ready to play in week one because he suffered that Achilles injury so late in the season back in December. And we've seen several quarterbacks over the past few years try to bounce back from an Achilles injury. We're talking about Kirk Cousins. We're talking about Aaron Rodgers. Both of those guys struggled a little bit early in the season when they tried to come back from that. So if Daniel Jones is struggling his first few weeks, and that's if he's even out on the field, that could be trouble. So that makes him a question mark there. But of course, if he comes back, returns, and plays like he did to start last season, then you just got yourself a bargain at quarterback.
Yeah, it's crazy. The broken fibula week 10. We saw, of course, the Achilles in week 14. I know I might get some pushback when I said top player Daniel Jones, but first 8 weeks of the season, MVP conversation for him out in Indianapolis. Let's move on to a couple more names, Tyler, here. Jalean Phillips, who was a midseason acquisition going from Miami to Philadelphia this past year.
Yeah, and it really was night and day for that Philadelphia defense. Once Jalean Phillips arrived, you're talking about the best defense, scoring defense in the NFL since making that trade when he arrived. So clearly, this is an impact player, but there's some question marks here as well. So for all the good things, and again, Jalean Phillips is a highly talented player. You're talking about the 4th highest pressure rate in the NFL last season with a minimum of 300 pass rushing snaps. As I referenced, Philadelphia Eagles had the #1 scoring defense with him in that lineup. They also had the 5th highest pressure rate. So again, if you're a team looking for Jalean Phillips, you're probably looking at a top-tier pass rusher that potentially could make around $17 million, $20 million per season. That's not going to break the bank. That's not in the Micah Parsons world in terms of pass rushers, but you're still paying a pretty penny. The concern here for me, though, is this player does have a little bit of an injury history, and I really even shouldn't say a little bit of an injury history. We're talking about in his NFL career already a torn Achilles, a torn ACL, and this player is only 27 years old at the start of next season. You would say, okay, he's young, but a guy with an injury history that's already that young, and now he's going to start to get a little bit older, and the miles start to tack on a little bit more. Do those injuries start to ramp up a little bit more? So again, really productive player when he's been on the field, but if you're signing him in free agency, you're signing him most likely into his age 30 season and beyond, and that's when we start to get a little concerned about the availability going forward.
Yeah, that's been a common theme for most of these guys in this conversation of boom or bust. Injury and injury concerns. Last but not least, Breech, for you, Bucks wideout Mike Evans.
Hey, why not keep with the theme of an injury concern here, Tommy? Look, Mike Evans is a possible future Hall of Famer. We know what he's done in his career. He started off with 11 straight seasons of 1,000 yards or more. That's almost unheard of. It's him and Jerry Rice in that conversation. But then you look at last season, and that kind of becomes the reality check. Is that the Mike Evans you're going to get, which is someone who's over the age of 30 and someone who's dealing with injuries all season? Broken collarbone caused him to miss several games. He injured his hamstring. That caused him to miss several games. And let's not forget, by the time he takes the field in week 1, he is going to be 33 years old. And if you look at the NFL historically, receivers have absolutely fallen off a cliff after age 30. They lose a step. They're a little bit more injury prone. So you don't know exactly what you're going to get. Now, the upside here is that this is Mike Evans, and if he looks at all like he did 2 years ago, or if he can avoid the injuries, he becomes a superstar in your offense. So this is something that any team that's interested in Evans is going to have to take into consideration. This feels like a situation where maybe you give him a 1 or 2 year deal at 33. You probably don't want to give him anything long term, but he's someone who could be a great weapon in the right offense as long as he can stay healthy, and that will be the big question.
Selfishly, I would just like him to stay a Buck, one franchise, get it all done out there, but of course there is money to be made for someone like Mike Evans. John Breech, Tyler Sullivan, guys, certainly appreciate it with boom or bust free agent candidates. As you take a look at the upcoming league calendar, I can also let you know about Pete Prisco's top 100 free agents. Among the names we discussed, Trey Hendrickson ranked highest at number 2. Tyreek Hill didn't crack the top 100.